Yet standing firm. This is Radio Cayman in the Cayman Islands.
For the Record is brought to you by Vamped Motors, the only authorized Ford and Toyota dealership serving the Cayman Islands. Cayman Pharmacy Group, with a location in West Bay and professional pharmacy at CTMH Doctors Hospital. The Cayman Pharmacy Group has a location for you just around the corner. Seaboard Marine. With over 35 shipping ports, find your shipping solution by calling 949-4977 or visit seaboardmarine.com for competitive rates. And Rotary Central. For more than 110 years, Rotary members have used their passion, energy, and intelligence to take action on sustainable projects.
This is For the Record with Orrett Connor.
Coming to you live from Radio Cayman Studio.
For the Record.
For the Record. For the Record. Hear from your government officials, independents, and the opposition on issues that matter to you.
For the Record.
Engage in an open dialogue between residents and lawmakers.
For the Record.
For the Record. For the Record.
Informative, impartial, insightful.
This is your talk show.
1-800-534-8255. Your calls, your input. This is For the Record. And now, your host, Orrett Connor.
Good morning and welcome to For the Record. Today is Monday, the 25th day of February 2018. I trust that everyone had an enjoyable weekend, that you had a good night, and that you're raring to go today. Those of you who may have been up late watching the Oscars, hope you enjoyed that as well. For those of you who are on the roads, whether you are a pedestrian, whether you are a cyclist that is riding a bicycle or on a motorcycle, if you're operating any type of vehicle on the road, we ask you again to be extremely cautious on the roads. Be courteous on the roads. Observe the rules of the road. And if you do find yourself in a situation, please try to avoid the road rage. Think twice, take a deep breath before you do anything that may be considered to be irrational. Folks, I want to thank you for allowing Radio Cayman and by extension For the Record into your homes, into your vehicles as you traverse the busy roads of the Cayman Islands, into your places of work, whether it be an office cubicle or if you're working in the outdoors. For the Record is a show produced by the staff and management of Radio Cayman, and it is geared towards keeping you abreast of issues as they arise and play out on the local, regional, and international scene. I am your host, Orrett Connor, and you're welcome to join me every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 7:30 a.m. until 10 a.m. Our phone lines are always open. There is always someone there waiting to take your calls. Normally, it is that beautiful Radio Cayman Brack voice of Miss Susan Watson. You can call us on our toll-free number provided courtesy of Flo. That toll-free number is 1-800-534-8255. You can also call us on 949-8037 and 949-6990. If you don't like to talk on the telephone, email us at For the Record. That is one word, For the Record, at candw.ky. You can WhatsApp us on 925-3261, where we encourage you to leave us a text message or send us a voice note, the contents of which will be played during the course of the show. And, of course, you can follow us on YouTube simply by subscribing to Radio Cayman live stream. Before I introduce my guest this morning and the topic, sorry, I'd like to extend sincere condolences on behalf of Radio Cayman and all of the friends and family of the late Miss Deanna Marin. Our condolences go out to her son, Craig, and his family, his brothers, sister as well. And we just want to say to you that your strength will come from the support that you get, but your strength will also come, from your strong religious belief as well. And our condolences do go out to you. It is now my pleasure to introduce in the studio this morning the Honorable Moses Kirkconnell, Deputy Premier and Minister for District Administration, Tourism and Transport, and also with us, his Chief Officer, Mr. Stran Bodden. Gentlemen, good morning. Welcome back to For the Record.
Good morning, OC. Before we get started, I'd like to join voice with you also and offering condolences to Miss Deanna's family, Craig. We've already reached out to him, but obviously we're always here for him and his family. Good morning to the Cayman Islands, and of course, always a big shout out to Cayman Bracken, Little Cayman.
Yes. Mr. Bodden.
Good morning, sir, and good morning to the listening public.
Okay, just a little bit of housekeeping before we start the show. We're going to have the minister and his chief officer talk about various points about tourism, update on the tourism industry's performance and the latest development with the proposed cruise berthing facility. We will take calls after the 8 o'clock news. So we won't take any calls until after 8 o'clock, and that is to give the minister and his chief officer an opportunity to present, to make their presentation without any interruptions. Not to say that their interruptions are bad, but simply it gives our guests the opportunity to lay out their points before we take calls. Is that fine with you, Minister?
That's fine with me.
Okay, sir.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for the opportunity to be on your show this morning. It's always a pleasure when you invite us, and we're here. We wanted to take the time this morning to really talk about tourism itself from the country standpoint, the overarching part of the second pillar of our economy. We like to say that tourism is everybody's business, so it doesn't matter what you do in this country, tourism affects you on a daily basis. And we know there's been a lot of publicity about last year when 2018 finished. That was the best year we'd ever had from a tourism arrival standpoint, and probably more importantly from a tourism spend standpoint, which means that when they come to their destination, they come to the Cayman Islands, that they spend as well. You know, we could sit here and say, well, we had a lot of arrivals, but if they didn't spend, it doesn't really do a whole lot for our GDP. So we're very pleased with that. And we wanted to steer the conversation for the first part of the show to talk about, from the country standpoint, how should you feel today? How should you feel about the future in tourism for the Cayman Islands? How should you feel if you're thinking about investing in a tourism business? If you want to be a tourism entrepreneur, how should you feel? Is it an opportunity? Is it a risk? Is it something that you should talk about more? When is the best time for this? So we thought that if we could take the time and just kind of lay out what we do, because truthfully, it's a tremendous partnership with Caymanian people, stakeholders, and then the government itself that has the responsibility for, so to say, steering the ship in the right direction to make sure opportunities and the product itself is delivered. So I start off by saying that it's a very tough act to follow when you have just produced the best year in the history of your country as far as arrivals and spend from a tourism product. But I'm also extremely pleased to say this morning, which the numbers will probably be released a little bit later today, that January was again a better January 2019 than 2018 was. And stayover, we were up 5.56%. Cruise, we were up 24% from previous bookings. And we did a cumulative on that the cruise and stayover combined was up 21% over last year. But what does that really mean to you and me and to the people themselves? Well, basically it means that from the economy standpoint, over $88 million was spent in January. No multiplier effect. First time spend of when they arrived on the island and spent for a product. The increase means that $8.5 million more dollars were spent this year than 2018. Certainly heading in the right direction. And 5% is a sustainable number. And that's certainly what we work for from the standpoint of stayover. But I think the other very important part is to realize the responsibility of, it's not only about when you see the person at the airport. It is, how did they find out about the Cayman Islands? How did they get to the Cayman Islands? What are they going to do when they get to the Cayman Islands? How are they going to interact with us? What is the opportunity for, especially a young Caymanian, looking at tourism as their future? And are they going to come back? So those are responsibilities we all have. And we will take our time this morning and break down what Chief Officer and the ministry basically do on a daily basis, looking at how we put these pieces together, knowing that every link of this chain is dependent on the other one, because the weakest one is the reason the person didn't come back.
Precisely.
And we are extremely pleased that we have over a 50% repeat guest return. So
do we know how that compares regionally or otherwise?
We're where we want to be. We're quite high in repeat guests, and the question that you asked gives us a competitive edge. And I'll give you an example that when we present at different conferences and different meetings, and you bring in the wholesalers, the travel agents, all the people globally that represent you, and you say to them two things. Number one, if you do your job, we're going to do our job. Because when you sell that first time, you have over a 50% chance that you really don't have to do a whole lot the next time, but they're coming back. So we have done what you represented that we would do. And I think that's extremely important to them to understand the differentiator for us as a country of how we get them to make us the preferred destination of when they're out in the market looking as well. They know that they're going to have very few issues when people come back. But that's the challenge that we as a country take on. And I think that we certainly represent ourselves extremely well. So that's the first part of it. We have to reach into the market. We have to look at how we get people here. We have to understand when we should get them here. Example being that it's a hill in the valley. If all your rooms are full, it makes no sense to advertise in that time period. But when your rooms are in the valley, that's when you have to understand how you attract people at that time. And that we have been able to accomplish through medical tourism, sports tourism, conferences, incentive meetings. Stakeholders have all kind of summer discounts, but all focused in that same way and coordinated through CITA, SITA, stakeholder meetings, and a very, very good group of people that understand the business.
Okay, that's a good point for us to take a commercial break. Folks, please stay tuned for the record with the Honorable Moses Kirkconnell, Minister for District Administration, Tourism, and Transport, and his Chief Officer, Mr. Stran Bodden, will continue after this short commercial break.
The Cayman Islands boasts of a long, colorful, and rich history. In tribute to our roots, Radio Cayman, the voice of the Cayman Islands, is pleased to bring you the historical vignette series, sponsored by Cayman National Bank. Visit Cayman National Bank today for all of your financial needs. The Cayman Islands, he hath founded it upon the seas.
Prior to the arrival of the organized churches, Cayman's earliest schooling system was provided ad hoc by private individuals who taught the basics of reading, writing, and arithmetic. Once the churches became established, education and religion became inseparable due to two reasons. One, there was a shortage of funds to create government schools, and two, Caymanians were keen on an education system which would instill Christian virtues and values. This system gave the churches a powerful influence over society, something which can still be felt today. The first trained schoolmaster in the Cayman Islands was John Jarrett Wood, who opened a school in Bodden town in 1844. Mr. Wood was trained in Jamaica by the Congregationalist London Missionary Society and the Interdenominational Miko Normal College. The first public board of education would later be created between 1908 and 1920.
Radio Cayman's historical facts vignettes are proudly brought to you by Cayman National, with branches on all 3 Cayman Islands. Visit Cayman National Bank today for all of your financial needs.
540 months.
16,425 days.
394,200 hours.
45 years.
That's how long we've been committed to serving you, and we won't stop there. Over the years, we have proudly grown with Cayman, making a difference in the community. That's why we're here to stand by you.
We are Cayman National.
And we thank you for standing by us for 45 years and counting.
Since March 2004, West Bay Pharmacy has kept their doors open to the local communities, even before, during, and after Hurricane Ivan. At West Bay Pharmacy, our staff provides so much more than pharmaceutical excellence. From the moment you walk through our doors to completing your cash out, our staff will have put your healthcare concerns at ease. We would like to take this moment to thank our loyal friends and customers. To us at West Bay Pharmacy, our patients are our primary concern. We provide thorough background checks and precise calculations to ensure your medical safety. Thank you for being a part of our family and for choosing West Bay Pharmacy, where we care about your health.
Thinking of doing more to show your sweetheart you really care? Explore new roads together with the 2019 RAV4, Vampt Motors' #1 selling SUV. Save $2,000 off all 2019 RAV4s loaded with features you both will fall in love with, like maximum comfort and cargo space inside, eco mode for low fuel consumption, an audio system with USB and Bluetooth connectivity, vehicle stability and traction control to help you navigate wet roads, and advanced safety features to keep you and your loved ones safe. Do more for your sweetheart and save $2,000 now on the all-new 2019 RAV4 from Vampt Motors, Walkers Road.
At Seaboard Marine, customers often ask us questions about their shipments.
Hi, I'm thinking of buying a car from the States. Which port do you ship out of?
Hi, we ship out of Miami, Houston, and Brooklyn. Just let us know your port of choice and we can provide you with a quotation and answer any questions you may have on insuring and protecting your vehicle during its journey.
Shipping shore to shore, Seaboard.
Since 1993, Rotary Central has worked diligently each year to provide quality bus shelters to our community. A traveling convenience to our school children, the elderly, young people going to work, guest workers, and visitors using the public bus. We, Rotary Central, help you, our advertisers, make it happen. Your marketing dollar travels a far way. Positioning your message, your product, your services, your presence in over 83 bus shelters. Every dollar you spend, every advert you place helps to build another bus shelter, providing modest comfort for Cayman travelers. Reserve space now on the only billboard medium in the Cayman Islands. Email rotaryshelters@gmail.com. rotaryshelters@gmail.com. The Bus Shelters, a partner in community convenience. Another inspiration program by Rotary Central Cayman Islands.
Excuse me, I noticed you from afar.
Really? Me?
Well, not you. The KFC sandwich you're eating?
Oh, Zinger.
Sorry, I'm not trying to be funny.
No, it's called the Zinger Sandwich. Crunchy, juicy, 100% chicken breast, crisp lettuce, sweet mayo on a seeded bun with a little zing. KFC's chicken is not factory-breaded, frozen and refried like the Burger Boys. Customize your KFC Zinger and dip it in barbecue sauce.
Wow, now I'm starting to notice you too.
KFC, it's finger-licking good.
System 1 loaded.
1-800-534-8255. What is on your mind when it comes to the government, independence, and the opposition? Issues that matter to you. 1-800-534-8255. Waiting to hear from you. For the record.
This is For the Record with Orrett Connor.
Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. In the studio with me this morning, we have the Honorable Moses Kirkconnell, Deputy Premier and Minister for District Administration, Tourism and Transport, and his Chief Officer, Mr. Stran Bodden. We're receiving an update on the tourism industry's performance and the latest developments with the proposed cruise berthing facilities. I think we will talk also about the Owen Roberts International Airport and the official opening for the expanded facility as well. Before I pass the mic back over to the Premier, I just want to remind you, those of you who like to follow politics and like to follow Caribbean politics, that general elections in the British Virgin Islands taking place today. It seems as if the turnout is pretty high so far based on the number of people that have shown up and the length of the lines. So we will wait and see what happens in the BVI. Minister, back to you, sir.
Thank you very much, O.C. I was talking about the hills and valleys and about how we attract people at different times to the spend and to flatten out the carrying capacity of the island, basically. So I'd like to just continue that for a couple minutes, and then I'll ask Chief Officer Bodden to go through the airport itself and where we are with the finalization of the new terminal. So we were talking about it doesn't happen by accident when you have a slow time of the year and you try to move people to come at that time. So you can do it by a couple different ways. You can do it by price points. You can do it by attractions and events. We focused on sports tourism. Minister O'Connor Connolly is very keen for the different timing. This year she has brought Carifta here, which is fabulous, what it's going to do for us as a destination. A lot of the other events that she's driving forward. But the medical tourism, can't say enough about what that's doing for the country itself, plus what it does for the friends and family. And then we look at the incentive packages, and we don't have to look too far when you go down 7 Mile and you see the different events that are taking place there. We also look at how do you attract that, and you look at it from a year out, 6 months out. And I'll give you an example of that. We have a tool called Cayman Airways, and Cayman Airways is one of our differentiators as far as our tourism product and what it does for us. Last year, we were sitting in a spot, and we were very comfortable that we were going to have a good year. But again, as we've said before, we had the Eastern Caribbean countries who had tremendous hurricanes. Some will come back online. Some things will change. What are we going to do to continue the trend of upward tourism arrivals? So Cayman Airways put in daily flights to New York that started in December. And when we look at the 5.5% increase in January, a lot of that is out of the northeastern market, out of that New York gateway. So what was the real value of changing that to have daily flights? We know that they're the highest spend individuals that come. They spend $7,000 a week. We brought 1,000 more people from New York in January on Cayman Airways, that each one, in theory, will spend $7,000. So that's the type of result that you want. Cayman Airways is now opening Denver. Denver is a complete new gateway. No direct service into the region from Denver. Bookings are very strong, and the spend out of that area, including a tremendous dive area that will push us into the dive destination strength that we continue to have and look at other gateways. So that's the reach of not having direct air in and able to do it because we have our own national airlines. Yes. Also looking at Los Angeles to see how that affects our stakeholder partners and what their enthusiasm is for that. So I think we can see now that it was a good decision to go daily out of New York. We can mark what it actually did for the income of the country, and we start to benchmark how we use the tools that we have. That along with earmarking, the marketing of the Department of Tourism, led by Miss Rosa Harris, and fabulous team that she has there, and how they look at their new programs. very shortly, next couple of weeks, the new program will be coming out. And I think you'll be very pleased with some of the creative that's been done to attract and differentiate us again.
Great. Sounds great.
And then, of course, the other airlines, Americans added more seats out of Chicago. We see what's happening on the Miami-Fort Lauderdale route. You have 3 flights from American. You have every day. You have daily Southwest. You have daily JetBlue, Cal. So tremendous amount of seats in that market right now. And we look at WestJet has increased their capacity by changing the planes. The other airlines are adding more seats all the way around. So then that fits into what's going to happen with the room stock and how customers are available. Before I jump ahead of that, before they can get to those hotels, they have to go through the airport when they arrive. So I'll turn it over to Chief Officer and let him bring us up to speed on where we are with the airport itself.
Okay, I think we have about 2 minutes, and then we will resume it after we come back from the news. We will resume with Mr. Stran Bodden.
That's fine. Thank you.
Go right ahead. You can start, though.
Oh, okay. So we're 30 days out. Opening is 27th of March. Be opened by His Royal Highness Prince of Wales. So that's a very exciting time, and we're very pleased how that opening timing worked out. The new facility will be 2.7 times the old facility. If you just think about that for a minute, the amount of space that the old airport is even hard to fathom now what that looked like and how that felt as opposed to the facility we're seeing unfold before us now. But the most important part, again, is the space we're going to have for increased area for check-in during this time. Southwest came in, so we definitely needed more check-in space and arrivals. So Customs and Border Control, something you're very familiar with, Mr. Connor. Coming in there, immigration and customs, those halls are much larger for just people management. The vendors that are in the airport will open throughout the year. I think we have 2 or 3 that are open now, but they will, depending on their build out, will open throughout the year. That's retail, duty free, and the food vendors as well. And this year, we're just not going to stop at the end of March. Once we open, then we're going to switch to the airside works, which is a complete strengthening of the entire runway as it stands now. So the runway has been there for a number of years, and with the amount of equipment landing on it, it needs re-strengthening. So that has to be brought up in thickness. So the entire runway is going to be strengthened, which is quite the undertaking. It's also going to be extended for what's called the RISA, the runway end safety area. So another 400 feet is going to be added to the west, and additional apron for aircraft parking as well. We know those congested days of Saturdays and Sundays. We sometimes we have people planes on Charlie and Delta waiting to park and depart, in order that we can keep everybody parked. So we're going to add 2 additional apron stands to the east, which is going to help with that congestion.
Excellent. We're going to interrupt you there, folks. Please stay tuned for the record with the Honorable Moses Kirkconnell and his Chief Officer, Mr. Stran Bodden, will continue after the 8 o'clock news. So don't change that dial. For the record, we'll be back shortly.
Thank you, Mr. Connor. And studio time now by Price Right is 8 o'clock.
Price Right is Grand Cayman's warehouse shopping superstore, making your dollar go further with huge savings and no membership fees. Get more of the things you use every day at the right price. But it's not just grocery and health and beauty. Price Right has a full range of products from office to automotive, patio furnishings to kitchen appliances, and even electronics. And since warehouse prices mean savings for you, everything is priced right at Price Right, Grand Cayman's warehouse shopping superstore.
Access and information. Your community. News and information. Radio Cayman is your choice, your voice for today's biggest news. Radio Cayman.
With your latest news, I'm Carsley Fuller. A 49-year-old man denies charges of rape and threats to kill in the Grand Court. Appearing before Justice Marlene Carter on Friday, Logan Bodden entered not guilty pleas to a single charge of rape and threats to kill. Bodden is alleged to have raped a woman known to him. He was released on bail and is to return to court for a 4-day trial in May. In other court news, Levi Ambrose Powell entered not guilty pleas to 2 counts of handling stolen goods. Powell is accused of having handled a stolen Breitling Avenger watch and a pair of diamond earrings. Powell was remanded into custody and is expected to return in May for a 4-day trial. A new general physician comes on board at Chrissy Tomlinson Memorial Hospital. Details now from Radio Cayman's Shanda Gallego.
Dr. Ahmad Risk joins the CTMH Doctors Hospital team, a British international medical practitioner. He practiced medicine in the UK, Europe, Middle East, Africa, and Asia. He has a background in family medicine, obstetrics and gynecology, emergency medicine, military medicine, and occupational health. According to a press release, he is particularly interested in women's health, urgent care, food and environmental allergies, and healthy living. Ahmad's portfolio encompasses healthcare IT, health system improvement, as well as research and publishing. He provided consultancy services to public and private organizations, including the English and Scottish NHS, WHO, the European Commission, and the Ministries of Health of Saudi Arabia, Kazakhstan, and Europe. Dr. Risk has had the desire to help others since he was young. This passion for helping people led him directly into beginning his illustrious medical journey. Shanda Gallego, Radio Cayman News.
And close to 2,300 people gathered on the grounds of Pedro St. James for the celebration of all things coconut during the recently held annual Cocoa Fest. In addition to showcasing authentically Cayman-made products, all made from the coconut as a main ingredient, the event raised a total of $1,413 for its chosen charity this year, Meals on Wheels. Now with a check of international news, here's the BBC who will take us out of the newscast. I'm Karsley Fuller from Radio Cayman's newsroom.
ABC News with Neil Nunes. President Trump says he will put off a scheduled increase in U.S. tariffs on Chinese goods because there's been significant progress in trade talks between the world's 2 largest economies. Mr. Trump said there had been progress on structural issues, including intellectual property protection and technology transfers. The Chinese state news agency also said trade negotiations had been productive. A fresh round of peace talks between the United States and the Taliban has begun in Qatar. One of the Taliban's founders, Mullah Abdul Ghani Baradar, is leading the Taliban delegation. Sources in the group say his influence could add momentum. Representatives of several Latin American countries are due to meet today in Colombia to discuss further measures against the Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro. They are angry at Mr. Maduro's refusal to allow aid consignments into the country. The pro-Russia Socialist Party has won the biggest share of the vote in Moldova's parliamentary elections. With almost all ballots counted after Sunday's vote, it's taken 31%. Hollywood's biggest event of the year has ended with the film Green Book winning the Oscar for Best Picture. The feature film about a black pianist on a tour of the southern United States in the 1960s received 2 other awards. The Oscar for Best Documentary Short was awarded to a film which tackles the stigma associated with menstruation in rural India, called Period, End of Sentence. It's based on young women in a village not far from Delhi who make and market sanitary pads. An Australian press watchdog has ruled a controversial cartoon depicting the tennis star Serena Williams did not breach media standards. Critics had said the caricature published in the Herald Sun used racist stereotypes of African Americans. BBC News.
Access. Information. What's happening in your community? News and information, music and more. You can find us. www.radiocayman.gov.ky. Like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter. Radio Cayman is your choice, your voice for today's biggest news. Radio Cayman.
The 15th annual Cayman Economic Outlook returns on February 28th for another year of educating, informing, and stimulating the local community, bringing together industry thought leaders and business professionals to explore their theme, Dynamic New World, Braving the Turmoil. Speakers include economist Norina Hertz, University of Oxford professor Ian Golden, digital revolution journalist Andreas Ekstrom, biotechnology futurist Jamie Metzel, and professional surfer Mark Matthews. Tickets are selling fast. Reserve your seat at rfceo.ky.
Plastic pollution is a global issue.
Even our beautiful islands can't escape plastic being found on our beaches and in the ocean. Together, we can change this. We can start by taking the 345 Pledge, which is a personal commitment to make better choices in our everyday lives. I am Kelsey Woodman Bodden, Miss World Cayman Islands, and in a united effort for Cayman to be more environmentally friendly for the betterment of our future generations, I challenge all residents to take the 345 Pledge, which can be found at plasticfreecayman.com.
Pleasant good morning. Time now for the latest weather report. Current temperature is 82 degrees. Relative humidity is 79%. Barometric pressure 30.07 inches and rising. Wind is northeast at 8 knots. Overnight low temperature was 75 degrees. Synopsis indicate moderate winds and seas will continue over the Cayman area for the next 24 hours in association with a high-pressure system over the western Atlantic Ocean. Radar images show isolated showers south of the Cayman area moving west. Now the forecast for the Cayman Islands for today, calling for partly cloudy skies with a 30% chance of morning showers becoming mainly fair by this afternoon. Temperatures will be in the mid-80s. Your winds will be east to northeast 10 to 15 knots. And seas will be slight to moderate with wave heights of 2 to 4 feet. Tonight, partly cloudy skies with a 30% chance of late-night showers and temperatures falling to the low 70s tonight. Your winds will be east to northeast at 10 to 15 knots and seas will be slight to moderate with wave heights of 3 to 5 feet. Low tide will occur this afternoon at 12:56, high tide this evening at 6:13. The sun will set this evening at 6:28 and will rise tomorrow morning at 6:48. And the outlook is calling for similar weather conditions through Wednesday morning. Good morning once again. Let's take a look what's happening traffic-wise. Busy traffic coming from the east on Shamrock Road just past the Tomlinson roundabout and also on the Linford-Pearson Highway. Slight delays expected. Moderate flow of traffic on North Sound Road and traffic flowing moderately on Aidwood Street and Shedden Road. Light traffic coming from the Westway 4-way stop. And traffic is steady but flowing on Crew Road and little moderate flow of traffic on Huldah Avenue as well as Thomas Russell Way. On the West Bay Road in front of the Ritz, traffic is moderate in both directions. And that's the very latest on your traffic. Join us again at about 10 minutes after 12. We'll update you traffic-wise. Have a good morning. 10-2 on the steering wheel.
At Kirk's Home Center, we can make your life much better. We got it all together. We got a great deal in store for you.
This week at Kirk Home Center, save on electricity costs with 60-watt LED cool white light bulbs for $2.39 and dry clothes, towels, and more on a metal rust-resistant drying rack for $23.39. For the do-it-yourself homeowner, save on oil-free pancake compressors at $122.40 and enjoy home patio dining with the 5-piece Haven dining set for $593.99.
Kirk's Home Center, you got a great deal.
Attention parents, the American Boarding School Fair will be visiting Cayman tomorrow, Tuesday, February 26, at the National Gallery. This is the perfect opportunity to learn about the educational options available to Caymanian students firsthand from visiting delegates. The boarding school fair is free to attend. You have nothing to lose and potentially everything to gain. February 26 from 5 until 7 p.m. at the National Gallery. If you need more information, visit the admission page at www.gow.org or call 1-716-652-3450. That's 1-766-652-3450.
Hello, I'm Joseph Woods, the Acting Port Director. Our port facility is the hub of the Cayman Islands commerce and economic activity, handling $658 million in imported goods annually. From groceries to construction materials, all sectors of our economy depend on the port. But it is now 40 years old. Its infrastructure is degrading and we feel the strain from insufficient space for both cargo and cruise operations. The time is now. A new expanded port facility is needed to allow both cargo and cruise to operate efficiently and to support support our island's continued growth and development. Support the port, support our tourism, support Cayman's continued growth and development.
For the record with Orrett Connor.
Initiating system.
For information that matters. For the record with Orrett Connor. Continues right now on Radio Cayman.
Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. In the studio with me this morning, the Honorable Moses Kirkconnell, Deputy Premier and Minister for District Administration, Tourism and Transport, and his Chief Officer, Mr. Stran Bodden. We're receiving an update on the tourism industry's performance, also the latest developments with the proposed cruise berthing facility, as well as the latest developments as far as the expansion and the opening of the expanded Owen Roberts International Airport as well. So for those of you who recognize tourism as one of the main pillars of our economy, and there are those of you who rely more on tourism than you do on, say, the financial services end of things, or you may be more involved in the tourism aspect of it. And of course, those are the two things that we do well in the Cayman Islands, and you normally stick with what you do well, and you try to continue to do that, and you try to improve on it. Now, we did say we would take calls immediately after the news, but still a few more points to cover, so we're going to continue. But I want to assure you folks, we're not in any way trying to dodge any calls. We will be taking the calls once all of the topics have been covered by the Minister and his Chief Officer. And when you do call in, we're just simply asking you to be as brief as possible, be polite. We're not asking you to be confrontational in any way, but the phone lines will be open for you to call. I assure you of that. Mr. Stran Bodden, going back to you, sir, because we only gave you about 2 or 3 minutes before we went to the news break.
That's fine, Mr. O.C., that's fine. Just wanted to re-emphasize that we're now 30 days out from the grand opening of Owen Roberts International Airport. It will be opened by His Royal Highness the Prince of Wales. The facility will now be almost 3 times the size of the old facility. And this is very important for people management and their safety and security. The number of passengers we were pushing through that airport before was really becoming very constrained, very uncomfortable for our not only our residents but our visitors. So on Saturdays and Sundays it was not a gateway that we could be proud of. So with that wrapping up the end of March with the arrival of His Royal Highness, the facility that we will have will be something we can be proud of and take us into the future. I had started to also talk about the airside works. Not only do we need space for people, we need space for the aircraft that they come on. So we will be adding additional apron stands for aircraft parking, which is essential on those busy days. The runway will be strengthened and extended slightly for the runway, what's known as a RISA, runway end safety area. So those things will be happening this year into 2020. What will be continuing this year, the vendors will continue to come online throughout the year. I think we have 2 or 3 that are there now, but they'll slowly all become online and outfitted with their various stores and restaurants. I think, Deputy Premier, you wanted to go on to some additional works as well?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention, you mentioned the strengthening of the runway, and the reason the runway is being strengthened is for the size of the aircraft. That's our 777 that comes in from Heathrow. Okay. So obviously continuing to prepare for larger airplanes, continuing to advance ourselves into not a short-term but medium and long-term planning. Mm-hmm. Taxiways are on the immediate agenda, looking at their RFPs. The general aviation is on the agenda to come out now. Obviously, you saw Cebu, and hats off to the organizer of Cebu. Jason, his gang did a fabulous job. Mm-hmm. But when you had to send some privates to other airports to park and then come back, it's a wake-up call that we need to get going with this as quickly. Yeah. So we're outstripping the infrastructure that is there. CO talked about the increased apron space for the planes themselves. Also, the connector road infrastructure demand. Minister Hugh is charging every day trying to get those, the Eastern District road system and the connector road system up and going. So I always told people that when we had such an issue of too many people going through our airport, it was a good problem. But that good problem, if you don't deal with it, turns into a very bad problem. So I couldn't say that anymore. We had to really action and do some things. So what the calls I get mostly now on Saturday and Sunday is about seating. And I can tell you that there's about 400 more seats to go into departure area as they open up more gates there. And then obviously the lounges that are going to open. So we feel comfortable that for the next couple of years, short term, we're in good shape. But we're under no illusion that we can stop building and stop working at the airport expansion now, because it's not only terminal. Obviously, there's a green field there that the next terminal winds up with jetways in it. There's a green field for general where it can be moved. So I think the overall master plan has really put us into a good position for the next 20 years. It also identifies trigger events, which the trigger events happen. We did 460,000 arrivals from tourism last year, and then all the friends and family pushed us well over $1.5 million. So those are, as I say, good problems. But I know we're a little bit pressed for time. I wanted to move into the idea of when you get through the airport, you get a very good impression when you arrive. Now, we stand up to our competitors in the region. We stand up to our competitors any place globally as you arrive. The human capital, the things that are being done there by the civil service, Mr. Manderson, Mr. Clifford, their team. And then as we come out, we have a very strong transportation system. And I have to tell you that the ambassadors from our taxis and our tours, we get very positive cards back from them. But as we grow, everything is stressed. So it's a balance. And what we're finding now is the airport stretch. So we have to balance and do the very best we can until the improvement comes. The arrivals stretch. So recently we've added some more taxi licenses. So then once you add more licenses, then you need more management, you need more top level. Yes. So those are all, again, when you have a growing economy, a growing tourism industry, those are the balances we're going to have to fight, and those are the ones we want to fight. We don't want to fight the ones where we don't have jobs and we don't have opportunity. Before I go any further, I have to brag about the hospitality school. Those young people, those young men and women, it's one thing to see them in the school, OC, but it's when you see them out, when you're actually attending an event, and they're working, and they're enthusiastic, and you're just so proud of them. So really, really proud of them. And they see the opportunity. There's a young man who was the valedictorian of the first class that I see quite often. Last name is Bodden. I won't tell you his first name. But he continues to move up. I know that one day I'll walk into one of these bigger restaurants and see him either as the manager or the owner, one or the other, which obviously is exactly what we want to happen. So, again, as we go through, they arrive under our ministry. Our obligation is to balance how they get transported throughout the country. Then they return the management of the hotel rooms, the management of the condos, the management of how they come online, the quality control, and the exciting part of Airbnb and vacation rental by owner. 6,780 rooms online now registered by the Department of Tourism. Big increase. And that
includes Airbnb?
Everything. Yeah, Airbnb has, I think, 470 Airbnb properties. And I'm really glad you said that, because that puts us full circle. It puts us, you remember when people would come, and they come to our house. They come to your house, and they come to look for us.
Yes.
And you always give them a little prog to leave with and make sure they're going to come back. So they get the culture. They got our history. They got to feel us and know us. And the strongest comment that we get from an Airbnb visitor is that they met Harvey Stevenson or whoever they stayed, and they talk about the experience, the culture. I mean, we always say our competitive edge is the Caymanian people.
Yes.
That's the feeling Caymankind comes out with Airbnb, vacation rental by owner, how they're treated. So that... we see a 20% increase in room stock coming online next 5 years. Mandarin, Dark 5-star. You have the Hilton Curio that was just announced. Fantastic brand, fantastic stakeholders, fantastic owners, Matthew White and Noel. I mean, they're just doing really amazing things. And then the Hyatt, Grand Hyatt, I think that's 400 and change. So you see the dotting not only on 7 Mile Beach, you see it sprinkling into Georgetown, you see it going into Bodden Town, you see things happening in Cayman Bracken, Little Cayman, you see airlift. So we're very happy at the direction our tourism product is taking.
Now both of you have mentioned a lot of works that are going on. Can we speak a little bit about the financial position? Now, these days we hear a lot of UK bashing about different things, but we rarely hear them talk about contingent liability anymore. They don't use that as a talking point anymore, and I suspect that has to do with the strong financial position that we in the Cayman Islands find ourselves in, not by accident, but more by design than anything else. But in terms of the financing, we'll talk about the port financing later on, but the airport's authority and the financing there for everything. How are things going with that?
Things are going very well. There's been quite a bit of public discussion around the airport and the financing and where we got to. But the simple explanation was the budget at the time was what we could afford. When we saw an increase in arrivals, we had additional funds to do additional things, and that's what happened. The board took decisions, with the minister's support, to have additional amenities, additional scope of the project included. And the airport was even further upgraded than what it was envisioned initially.
Okay.
Obviously under the Premier's guidance, and he's very strong in this position of how we adhere to be in compliance with our ratios. We have a debt service of how much we can pay percentage-wise of our budget every year, and we also have a certain number of days that we have to have cash available for. So first thing is us being able to own the airport itself, because we could afford to do it, gives us a competitive edge over what we charge for arrivals and what we face regionally of what other airports. I mean, it's no secret of the cost of the taxes into Jamaica and how expensive they are compared to, and a lot of times that Cal gets the bad name, but really it's what the charges are for the airport that drives the price of the ticket up. So we were able to capture that. And again, with Premier's guidance, the look at expenditure for infrastructure has to be balanced of prioritizing what is needed. Of course, every minister fights for that. I make my case as we're the driver. We bring, fresh U.S. dollars, fresh pounds. We bring investment in. So I probably think I should get a little bit more than other think, because they all have the same passion. Yes. But we all, at the end of the day, come to some good conclusions, and I think the results we're seeing are a lot of that from the guidance of a really strong team at caucus level.
Okay. Well, one of our listeners has written and said, good day. All politicians in the House spending a lot of time on one side or another on construction of the port. But if wages posted, the wages that they see posted in ads continue to spiral downwards as they are doing, Caymanians will not be able to make a living in this industry. Politicians need to spend more time on what will affect Caymanians, whether the port is built or not. Minimum wage by category to start with. Having meetings in their districts to see why people are either unemployed or underemployed as well. And then I think they've provided some figures in that regard. Any comments to that, writer?
No, thank you very much for the question. I can specifically speak to Cayman Brac and Little Cayman, the programs that we have there. From a government standpoint and statutory authority standpoint, we do not deal with minimum wage. They start out $10 plus. I can say that the government, every week that we sit in caucus together as a group, are aware of $6. Is that really a living wage? It is certainly the minimum wage, and there are reviews coming out now because, again, when your country is doing well, in the same way I talked about the hospitality school and empowering young Caymanians through education, emancipation of an education, is the same thing we have to do to protect the other ones, to make sure that we have a living wage in place. Again, I can tell you from the ministry standpoint, chief officers here, we encourage people, if they have an issue, to call us, to come see us. We set up interviews for them at the different stakeholders and attractions, and we try to make sure high percentages and take the roadblocks out of the way of employing Caymanians and giving them the opportunity.
Okay. We have another one. This person writes and says, good morning to Mr. Connor, to you and your panel, Mr. Kirkconnell and Mr. Stran Bodden. I feel that tourism is both a risk but a good thing for the islands. Taking risk is a part of our everyday lives. So I would support the risk of challenging tourism, that we may go forward in a positive way. I think that comment, and if you can couple that with how we go about safeguarding our tourism sector, not cruise tourism as well as our airport arrivals. How do we go about securing, safeguarding that in the face of the threats that may come from varying directions? I'll leave that question, let that hang out there. That will be a preview for us to open our phone lines. We're going to take a commercial break. When we return, the phone lines will be open. Folks, please stay tuned. For the record, with the Deputy Premier and Minister of District Administration, Tourism and Transport, the Honourable Moses Kirkconnell, and his Chief Officer, Mr. Stran Bodden, will continue after this short commercial break.
At Seaboard Marine, customers often ask us questions about their shipments.
I have various items coming from different suppliers that I need to ship to Cayman. Do you offer consolidation?
Yes. Seaboard Marine offers consolidation for full and less than container loads. We can hold your packages at our Miami warehouse until everything arrives and ship it all in one go. And we have the best rates to Grand Cayman. Visit seaboardmarine.com for more information.
Shipping shore to shore, Seaboard.
It was a day that changed my life. No words can describe the feelings of seeing my baby boy sick for the first time. The overwhelming feeling of fear to be responsible for his health and happiness became my priority. So I did what any nurturing mother would do when their baby is sick. I took him to get some of the best medicine possible.
CTMH Doctors Hospital Pharmacy understands the importance of careful decisions you make every day for your family. Our staff work towards healthcare excellence and providing the most current and up-to-date training with pharmaceutical care, so you can feel confident in knowing that your family is safe with the right medication. At CTMH Doctors Hospital Pharmacy, we take care of your health.
Our children, they are the future of our country. So often, being a parent means making the tough decision now so that they can flourish and prosper.
The American Boarding School Fair will be visiting Cayman on Tuesday, February 26th at the National Gallery. With Cayman's growing and diverse global economy, this is the perfect opportunity to learn about the educational options available to Caymanian students, firsthand from visiting delegates.
There is no charge to attend. You have nothing to lose and potentially everything to gain. With specialized programs and a focus on individuals with learning differences, these leading institutions provide a well-rounded education and international experience.
Yes, the boarding school fair is free to attend for all parents and students at the National Gallery on February 26th from 5 to 7 p.m. For more information, visit the admissions page at www.gow.org or call 1-716-652-3450. That's 1-716-652-3450.
System 1 loaded.
1-800-534-8255. What is on your mind when it comes to the government, independence, and the opposition? Issues that matter to you. 1-800-534-8255. Waiting to hear from you. For the record.
This is For the Record with Orrett Connor.
Good morning, and welcome back to For the Record. I want to tell you that our phone lines are officially open now, and I believe we have two callers queued up. Let's go to the first caller. Caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Hello?
Yes, good morning, caller. Welcome to For the Record. You need to turn your radio off, please. We're getting a feedback.
Just Mr. Kirkconnell.
Good morning.
This is Clive Christian.
How you doing?
Not too bad for an old man.
You're a young man. What are you talking?
Yeah, there are some things I need to discuss with you, but it would not be in the best interest of the department for me to say it on radio.
All right.
I would like maybe have lunch together, something I can bring some things from the ground floor here about transportation and tourism.
You want to call me or you want me to call you?
You better call me whenever you have the time.
All right, I'll do that.
Okay. You can leave your number with Miss Susan, caller.
Yeah, because it's very important, but I don't want to say things on radio. That'll be good for you.
No problem. Thank you.
Let's go to the next caller. Caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Good morning.
Good morning, ma'am. How are you?
Good, and good morning, Mr. Moses and Mr. Bodden.
Good morning.
Morning.
I thank you guys very much for seeing us last week Tuesday. Over 30 taxi drivers came to the glass house to have a meeting with you guys. And you left us with a lot of confidence and hope. And we're looking forward to that. And I just want to say, Mr. Moses, I have some pictures that I was up at a blowhole yesterday doing a tour. I have some pictures, or someone send them to the WhatsApp, and I would like to show them to Mr. Moses for me in regard to the safeness by those blowholes, Mr. Moses. I don't know what can be done, but I just want to show you what was there yesterday at early morning between 10 o'clock and probably 10:30. The traffic was already there looking at the blowholes, and it was very dangerous, cars coming flying left, right, and center. But anyhow, Mr. Moses, I just want to say that also the last step down on the staircase going down to the blowholes, it's a little bit still too high. It should be level off with the ground because it's like, look, it could be like 3.5 to 4 inches high off the lower ground. So we got elders that goes down there and being held by their family members and so forth. But I think if that would be a little bit flatter, it would be a little bit more comfortable to walk down and step back up. And I just want to say, Mr. Moses, I thank you so much for last week. And I'll be looking forward to having more meetings with you in regards to the public transport when it comes to every year there's a new something new on agenda for the taxi drivers. And Mr. McLaughlin not in this morning?
No, Mr. Bodden.
Wasn't the premier coming in as well too?
Well, I didn't invite him, but next time I will.
No, the premier wasn't scheduled to call her.
Yeah, for the thing that's stating both you always coming, but that's okay. That's okay. We'll catch him another time. But I just want to thank you guys for seeing us in Mr. Moses. We will be back at that glass house with our problems with public transport.
Okay, well, the glass house is not going to move, so we'll be there waiting on you. I just want to say the example you gave this morning is the way that we can help and deal with problems, because we wouldn't have known there was an issue unless she had said something about it. I can assure you that whether it's the ministry or the department, once we get the information, we try to look into it, action it, and if it doesn't happen right away, you need to call us back and let us know that we need to continue to look into it. So that's the spirit of cooperation. That's the balance of having these attractions. That's, what we have to do to continue to grow our product. So thank you very much for the call this morning.
Yep.
You're welcome. And I'm going to send the pictures right away so you can show them to Mr. Moses.
Please do that, and I certainly will. I certainly will. And she mentioned the blowholes, and I think that time of the morning, 10 o'clock, you find that a lot, because we, on a Sunday morning, for instance, we're cycling in the Eastern District. You have a lot of people who are coming from the hotels, the timeshares in that area, and they stop at the blowholes to take either the blowholes or Lover's Wall to take that final photograph before they head to the airport. So that's when you will see the build-up, of activity in the blowholes area. It's so funny that I was going through some stuff last night, and I came across some paintings by Ed Oliver, and this was in the 1970s, and the photograph of the blowholes and the road and the way that it was then was amazing as well.
That East End area is alive. You hear what I tell you? Moritz, Reef, Compass Point, and they've got a very special little boutique going in there now by a local Caymanian, a young attorney that I believe is going to spend more time there than in her law office. So some very, very good things happening out there.
Excellent. I think I interrupted you. Well, we didn't interrupt you. We didn't get started on safeguarding our tourism industry.
Right. Yeah. No, that's a really good discussion to have, because I would like to explain it. Obviously, I'm from private sector. I look at things as a business. Tourism is our business. It's everybody's business. So I'll give you an example that if you had a hardware store and you have a product mix, which is what we do as a country, we have a product mix. That hardware store might sell appliances, lumber, tools, a hardware section. If you have one of those sections that are performing extremely well, you have to decide whether you're going to expand it. If you have one of those sections that's not producing what you think it should based on what the overheads are, you have to understand that you can either fix it or you can stop selling it. That's how we look at our product mix. When we sit down, I like to say sit down in our war room with Department of Tourism, Airport Authority, CAL, all the heads, and talk about our opportunities. If you think about, we have a $200 million spend from cruise every year. How do we improve it and grow it, or how do we stop it and let it shrink? So we have to make a decision of, if we decide to shrink it, what do we replace it with? And that was one of the reasons the government, before my time as the minister responsible, chose to have a business case done by one of the world's most recognized groups, PwC, of, do you shrink this? You grow it. Which one do you have to make the decision of what is the most important and what is the best way forward for your country? And then once you get that information back from the foremost expert, you can make a decision. And I think we made the decision. We made the decision to grow it. But we made the decision based on the best facts, best in class that was available. And I think that's as simple as I can explain the other tourism areas of what are we going to grow? How do we strengthen medical tourism? How do we strengthen sports tourism? How do we strengthen the ones that bring us up from the valley and make our spend flat? So those are the kind of tools that you need to make the decision with, and I can say that the growth in tourism doesn't happen by accident. There's a lot of work that goes into when you see the person get off a plane. There's a lot of work that went in to get them here. Then there's a lot of work that goes in to keep them here and make them happy. So it's a very good mix right now.
Okay. One of our listeners has written in and said, please ask the Honourable Deputy Premier if canopy over the ramps to the planes is in the works. I think it will help when it's raining. For when we get to the ramps, we would be out in the rain and less water will be carried into the planes on that. So we wanted to know whether or not they're going to have any sort of canopy to lead out to the aircraft.
At the completion of what we're doing right now, which is 30 days out, there will not be a canopy that goes out to the plane. The canopy will be completed along the walkway that they're working on right now. But there was also a big discussion about jet bridges and the need for jet bridges. And again, if you look at the business case, there's a green field that's available for the next build-out, which would include jetways, and that is to the east of where we are right now completing. The important part is that we simply didn't have the money to do any more than we're doing right now. It was stretched. And when the economy turned and the government itself was able to inject more, we're actually ahead of where we thought we were going to be. Some of the things were the canopies in the front where people would drive under, they were an add-on. The strengthening of the glass itself to impact resistant glass in the circle in front, crest, and some other parking areas. See what else was added there?
Those were the three main.
Three, yeah. So I think that the important part was to get upgraded as quickly as possible, because quite frankly, if we hadn't started when we started, where would we be today? We've had an increase of 1 million people through that airport, so there was no longer time to continue to talk about doing something. We had to do something.
Okay. Ms. Susan, we'll take the commercial break now, and this way we don't have to break in interrupt the conversation. Please stay tuned for the record. We'll be back shortly. I want to remind you the phone lines are open, and I will give you those numbers when we return as well.
Thinking of doing more to show your sweetheart you really care? Explore new roads together with the 2019 RAV4, Vamped Motors' #1 selling SUV. Save $2,000 off all 2019 RAV4s loaded with features you both will fall in love with, like maximum comfort and cargo space inside, eco mode for low fuel consumption, an audio system with USB and Bluetooth connectivity, vehicle stability and traction control to help you navigate wet roads, and advanced safety features to keep you and your loved ones safe. Do more for your sweetheart and save $2,000 now on the all-new 2019 RAV4 from Vamped Motors, Walkers Road.
Since 1993, Rotary Central has worked diligently each year to provide quality bus shelters to our community. A traveling convenience to our school children, the elderly, young people going to work, guest workers, and visitors using the public bus. We, Rotary Central, help you, our advertisers, make it happen. Your marketing dollar travels a far way. Positioning your message, your product, your services, your presence in over 83 bus shelters. Every dollar you spend, every advert you place helps to build another bus shelter, providing modest comfort for Cayman travelers. Reserve space now on the only billboard medium in the Cayman Islands. Email rotaryshelters@gmail.com. rotaryshelters@gmail.com. The Bus Shelters, a partner in community convenience. Another inspiration program by Rotary Central Cayman Islands.
Miami is so much more than just a shopping destination. Foodies, friends, and family are flocking to Miami for a variety of vacation experiences. From theater shows and concerts, theme parks and sports, to museums, fine dining, festivals, culture, spa, and more. And with regular Miami airfares now from just $182 CI round trip, including taxes, now is the time to plan your unique Miami getaway. For details and to book, call 949-2311 or visit CaymanAirways.com.
We invite you to listen in on Thursday at 7 p.m. on Radio Cayman for the next CI Retro Talk Today presentation in the Celebrate Cayman series, when we'll give you a bird's eye view, word picture of our Cayman Islands' vast maritime heritage, or maritime, which underpinned the firm foundation on which the modern Cayman Islands has been built and still continues to do so. CI Retro Talk Today is being brought to you by these fine sponsors: the Ministry of Culture, Health Service Station in West Bay, the Maritime Authority of the Cayman Islands, and by Arch and Godfrey Cayman Limited. That's CI Retro Talk Today, Friday, February the 22nd at 12:15 on Radio Cayman. CI Retro Talk Today is also being brought to you by Thompson Shipping. You can call them at 949-8044 for all of your shipping needs.
For the record, with Orrett Connor.
Initiating system.
For information that matters. For the record, with Orrett Connor. Continues right now on Radio Cayman.
Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. It is my pleasure to have in the studio with me this morning the Honorable Moses Kirkconnell, Deputy Premier and Minister for District Administration, Tourism and Transport, and his Chief Officer, Mr. Stran. Bodden. Before we go on to another topic, which are the plans to manage the ongoing operations during the reconstruction and refurbishing period, we have a few emails as well. One says, at the port meeting held at the Family Life Center in September, I asked for a list of the 900 plus jobs that government was stating that would be available for Caymanians. Are they any closer to providing us Caymanians with the list of 900 plus jobs that will be available? If you can take note of that one. And then the other one says, good morning to you and your panel. Chief Officer Mr. Stran Bodden, I have a question. Mr. Bodden presented a Georgetown revitalization plan and schematic in October at the Ritz-Carlton last year as part of a conference. When or how can this be made public? So the two questions came in as well, and I want to thank the listeners for those questions also.
Here to you.
Okay. October seems like a long time ago. The Georgetown revitalization
plan and schematic.
I don't think that was me, because that isn't under our ministry.
Yes, yes.
Mr. Lumsden has just been hired.
Yeah, the Georgetown manager,
that would have been Minister Hugh, right?
Right.
Yeah, Mr. Colin Lumsden is now in post, and we've had discussions with him in terms of his ideas and gelling well with the proposed cruise berthing facility. We've talked about how we manage the people coming into Georgetown, what plans he has, and within his larger ministry for road construction, road expansion. Simple things like how do they crosswalks gel with people coming ashore, getting further into town, further into businesses that are in Georgetown, not just on the waterfront, so that they can benefit as well. But yeah, that Georgetown revitalization question is a better question for him and his ministry.
Okay, and then we had a caller offline who was curious to know the empty space that is between the north terminal and the little liquor store there, whether or not there are any plans for that, I think that may fall under the revitalization project as well, and anything that may be done to upgrade the facility where the fishermen are. That's, of course, a huge attraction, especially for cruise visitors and stuff like that.
Right.
But
I would
imagine
say
that would fall under
that property is private property. That's not port property.
Okay.
I would have to look up to see who owns the property.
Yes.
But I would say that it is under the radar of Georgetown Revitalization, and as you have mentioned, the importance of what they do there and how it's trafficked every day by a tremendous number of people. So is it a private sector opportunity? Is it something government wants to take under revitalization and improve it? There's always a balance to be struck, but we certainly recognize the issue there.
Okay. Now, ongoing operations, managing those, I recall reading in one of the Tradewinds newspaper in the mid-1960s when the new airport runway was being constructed, that there were certain days that the planes would arrive, and then there were days when there were no arrivals or departures simply because of the reconstruction. We've come a long way since then, in that regard, and I'm not sure whether or not we're in a position to do what they did then.
Well, obviously it's a challenge.
Yes.
And hats off to Mr. Albert Anderson and his whole team there at the airport for what they've been able to do to manage that. And that's been a coordinated effort between, again, I heap praise on Deputy Governor and the group there as far as human capital and what was needed. But again, it's the balance of knowing what's going to happen on a daily basis and how do you meet that demand and how do you make sure that what you have to do has a balance to what happens downstream, whether it's an arrival at the Ritz or arrival at Beach Suites or arrival at Moritz. So that, again, is a coordinated effort. We also, I know there's been a couple questions about the cruise berthing facility itself and what would happen during that construction period when Chief Officer goes through the procurement part of it, because that is part of the procurement model for them to have a plan of how they would manage it. But I would just like to put a quick comment in here that there's a certain number of tenders that come ashore with people. What the important part of the model is that you have to have, if you have 20 tenders, you have to have 20 spots for the tenders to go to. So if you have construction going on 10 of those spots, you have to understand where those 10 that the construction is taking place will go. So I give you an example that if the first thing that you did was extend the cargo pier, which is part of the bid, to improve cargo, to expand cargo, to modernize cargo, to update cargo. If you do that first and you put that jetty farther out to accept the tenders that will be displaced of where construction is happening, is just an example of how they would model to make sure they could get the number of passengers ashore and not disrupt what you want to happen downstream, which is obviously them take the tours, go East End, go West Bay, enjoy Georgetown, and have a walking day as well. So those are we're aware, and the bidders understand that the cruise berthing pier is a part of infrastructure, and it's a vehicle to get people ashore in the easiest possible way to enjoy Grand Cayman. That's as simple as I can say it and make it. I give you the next simple part of it is, if you want an example of the thought process, come to Cayman Brac, because we love people when they visit Cayman Brac. Go to the Port Authority, see how their pier is built. It's built on pilings that come out of the water, and then on top it's capped just like a highway and a bridge in the United States that you would see. So the intrusion into the ocean floor is as little as possible. The nursery that has been created, everybody knows that until the security came in, it was one of the best places to fish in the evening for the nursery effect of what is taking place there. Mm-hmm. So I think that sometimes it's really hard to imagine what it'll look like. But it's as simple as looking, that pier, I think, is 300 feet, somewhere close to 300 feet long. They're talking about 800 feet. So you get a real feeling of what it would look like and what it would be like. So I throw that out there for that. I hope that's an answer.
Okay, thank you for that. On the 900 jobs that it was intimated that would be created with the new cruise berthing
let me
facility.
take that as well. The model that we have followed is when they're building condominiums, hotels, the procurement model, the major project office that will come down with how this is going to be built will identify a number of jobs. Okay, that hasn't been done yet. I can say that you certainly need people who are professionals in cement, steel, all of the construction trades. The exact number you're not going to know. And then as the procurement office, the major project office goes through it, government caucus gets involved and looks for a percentage commitment of Caymanians that must be hired. Mm-hmm. And that becomes part of the equation of how do we make sure that Caymanians participate in this. And I think we've had some very good success in what you see going on buildings right now with Arch and Godfrey and the other contractors of the number of people that are there working.
Okay, we have about 2 minutes before we go to headline news, which is very short. The new partnership that the new partner that the Premier recently announced that has entered into the whole formula for the port as well. I'd like you to talk a little bit about that if possible.
Okay. You want to start with procurement because that ties all into it?
Sure.
Okay. Yeah.
So the final phase of the procurement is now wrapping up. We're bringing that to a close. That started when we released the invitation to submit final tenders last November. It was actually 30th of November. We had our first initial dialogue session with the three bidders in December. We had that was more of a kickoff. The first official one was in January. So they submitted their comments and questions. We are taking February to get those back and for them to look at those comments and our answers again. The second dialogue session would be in March, and the submission of the tender will be in April of this year. The expectations to get to preferred bidder in early summer, as I think Premier announced at the Chamber luncheon last week, and we get to contract stage in late summer. So things are moving. Things are people don't necessarily see things because you're not, but seeing anything happening physically. But behind the scenes, there's a lot of work taking place every week. So we're pleased with how it's going. Just to discuss about or start the discussion on the contract and the construction phase of the project. The thinking is, and we've had these discussions with the Port Authority, that the cargo dock as it exists now would be used more for the disembarkation of the passengers. Mm-hmm. So if Royal Watler, that cruise tender pair was not available, we would have the gangways on the cargo dock used to disembark the passengers.
Okay, we're going to take a break now for our headline news. That is very short, folks. I want to remind you, the discussion is with the Honorable Moses Kirkconnell, Deputy Premier and Minister for District Administration, Tourism and Transport, and his Chief Officer, Mr. Stran, Bodden. Please stay tuned for the record. We'll be back immediately after this short break.
Follow Radio K-Man on Twitter. All the latest information, breaking news, community events, and more. Follow us at twitter.com/Radio K-Man.
Radio K-Man.
From Radio K-Man's newsroom. These are the biggest stories right now.
The Department of Environmental Health is urging folks in Cayman Brac to make arrangements for their derelict vehicles and other metal waste to be dropped off at the Cayman Brac landfill by tomorrow. The metal baling operation, which started there on February 11th, will be wrapping up soon for the year. British actress Olivia Colman defied the odds to scoop an Oscar on a night when Green Book also sprang a surprising win of the Best Film Award. Colman won Best Actress for her role in The Favourite and charmed viewers with a funny and tearful speech. Green Book won 3 trophies in total, including Best Picture, which had been expected to go to Netflix's Roma. UK Prime Minister Theresa May is facing growing calls to say she will delay Brexit rather than leave the EU if no deal is in place by the end of March. A new plan from some Tory MPs suggests ministers postpone Brexit until May 23rd to, quote, conclude negotiations. It's being suggested as an alternative to cross-party proposals, which will see MPs take control in the process. Those are your latest headlines. I'm Kersley Fuller.
Radio Cayman, the voice of the Cayman Islands.
What's happening in your community? News and information, music and more. You can find us. www.radiocayman.gov.ky. Like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter. Radio Cayman is your choice, your voice for today's biggest news. Radio Cayman.
For the record, with Orrett Connor.
Initiating system.
For information that matter. For the record, with Orrett Connor. Continues right now on Radio Cayman.
Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. In the studio with me, the Honorable Moses Kirkconnell, Deputy Premier and Minister for District Administration, Tourism and Transport, and his Chief Officer, Mr. Stran, Bodden. We still have the phone lines open. Not reluctant to take any calls, not shy, not reluctant to answer any question that you may pose as well. Phone lines or toll-free number provided courtesy of Flow, 1-800-534-8255. You can also call us on 949-8037, 949-6990. Email us, which many of you have done, at For the Record. That is one word, For the Record, at CANDW.KY. WhatsApp us at 925-3261. So there's no excuse. If you have a question, if you have a comment, if you want seeking an answer to it, then you can certainly contact the minister here at this point in time. Until then, I'm going to throw the mic back over to the minister and his chief officer to give them an opportunity to... a call just came in. Okay. I teased them and they came. So, caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Hi, good morning, Mr. O.C. Good morning to the Minister, Kirkconnell, and good morning to Chief Officer Bodden and to Johan Moxham.
Morning, Johan. How you doing?
All right. Again, gents, just going to dive straight into it before Mr. O.C. Nothing personal, just questions based on math. Gents, can you help me better understand what is meant by financing commitments from the additional cruise lines? Because I accept that Carnival and Royal were always going to be in the game, but now we have commitments from Disney, and I understand, if it is to be believed or confirmed, that there are other commitments coming in from the other cruise lines. So in my mind, the commitments are either cash or in kind in the form of committed bodies to the jurisdiction. We know that 2.3 million is the number that we're looking at, but at some point, if we continue with the success, that's going to grow. My question is, what do they mean by additional finance commitments Secondly, the infrastructure required to accommodate 2.3 million passengers, what does that look like? What does it cost? And who's going to pay for that? And the third question, gents, is how do the bidders come and provide a final price if they haven't done the relevant sort of marine ecological studies that make up the EIA, and how much will that cost? Who does the terms of reference for the EIA? So 3 basic questions. Thanks for your time. Thanks for facing the country and helping us have a better understanding of where this thing is going.
Caller, before you go, can you repeat that the last point? I'm making notes as well. I'm sure that the Minister and his Chief Officer have.
This is unprecedented when O.C. Connor asked me to stay on the line.
You want to make sure you get your answer.
So, listen, there's a sure sign that the world is coming to an end.
Or a new world order.
And I even use my polite voice, so take that. The final question was the EIA. How do bidders get to a final price point if the bidders don't know what the cost is when it comes to all of the relevant studies that make up the EIA? So what is that anticipated to cost if government was doing it? And also, who is drafting the terms of reference for the EIA? Because it's been said publicly that the winning bidder will be responsible for carrying out the EIA, but the terms of reference have to be drafted by somebody. So I would assume that would be the Cayman Islands government via the Department of Environment. I just want to close off by saying, gents, we all want the same thing, a healthy, safe, vibrant Cayman. I just don't want to pay taxes for a project that I don't think we need to spend $300 million on. At 125, I'm right there sitting next to you guys in a yellow shirt going, build the dock.
Thank you very much, caller. Very, very pertinent questions and well presented.
Thank you. Thanks, Johan. Let's try to work through this step by step. The first thing I want to say is, you're right, it's extremely important for the country itself. I took the time earlier to talk about our mix from the tourism standpoint. I think you'll be the first one to agree that we have to find a balance. Stayover is growing now with 1.9 million cruise last year. It will continue to grow. We have a very good recipe for how we drive it forward and the positive spend, because again, the most important thing is they come and we have the highest spend in the region, which is what we're pointing for and what we want to do. The design burden that is on the bidders is the one that is going to come up with the price. I'm going to let Chief Officer talk to procurement, because policymakers don't get involved with procurement or the major project office, so he's probably a lot more knowledgeable than I am with that. But what I want to say is that if you look at where we are now and realize that the number that's being presented is 2.3 million, and Johan, you are absolutely correct. It could go up from 2.3 million. But if we take 2.3 million and we say, we know now that 2.3 million arrive and they're going to be brought ashore on tenders. Is that the way that we believe we will grow our business into the future, to make sure we're a stable economy and we have jobs and opportunity? I believe that when you think about you're on a cruise ship and you have a choice to make of whether you're going to take a tender ashore or you're going to get off and basically walk ashore, the preference will always be to walk ashore. And that's certainly only positive things, because we have the best tender operation probably globally right now. But if you think about what is available with that, and you have 2.3 million per year times, I've heard $6 or $7, I'll call it $7. That's $16 million a year that is now being paid to the tender operation based on that equation 7. It might be 13 if it's 6. That could be used to build a cruise berthing facility that does not touch any other revenue stream that the government has. So I think that is certainly one of the numbers that is put into the equation when PwC looks at it, and now that KPMG is doing the secondary part of the work. So you start understanding that we, as you, are very aware of risk, and we want to make sure that we avert the risk and we make sure that this is successful. But again, we're not going to have all of this information. We didn't rush headlong into the traffic and say we're going to bullishly do something. We got the best in class to come up with the costing and the way forward, because the first part of it is that it's acknowledged that because of our ratios, the country cannot afford to build this cruise berthing facility themselves out of cash. They simply don't have the wherewithal to do it. So they had to come up, once the decision was made that we didn't have another part of our product mix to replace cruise with, then we had to understand how we could grow it and benefit from a triple P and what was available without risk to the government finances. There's still more to go with this. They are now in procurement to look at what they're going to come back with. Mr. Max Jones gave them a number of $154 million. I'm not the expert. I don't have a magic wand. I have no reason to not believe him now. But we caveat that by saying we are still working on it on a daily basis to try to find what experts come back and say it is. So after this comes back, we still have the environmental aspect of the environmental impact assessment for any area that has not been included in the assessment we've already done. We have the Department of Environment working hand in hand to look into this. We have to finalize the business case. Cabinet has to make a decision. We have public consultation. So we have a lot more parts of this puzzle to come out to get the answer and give us satisfaction that this is going to be extremely successful and the bridge for the country to take us into the next part of our growth. You want to talk about the procurement parts?
Yes. Mr. Bodden.
And Mr. Cohen, I gotta rely on you for those questions. I didn't write down number 2, but I'll start with number 1. You'll prod me on what number 2 was.
Sure. Okay.
So the financing of the project, and I'm not going to use the word additional. I'm just going to talk on the financing of the project. So put aside this project for instance now, and we just talk about financing a project in general. So along with this project and other, the airport, we also have smaller projects. We're building restroom facilities in Northside and East End. Now, obviously, government has the financing for those projects. So we go out to bid. We get bids in. We evaluate them, and the best value for money wins the bid. We award the contract, and the work starts based on the funding that government has. So government has that funding for those facilities. Now, with this project, the government does not have the funding for this project. So the government had to go out and get the funding for this project. The funding for this project, it was envisioned from the very beginning that the cruise lines would be involved in that. Now, the discussion at the outset was the funding or commitment or guarantee would come in the form of passengers. That wasn't looked at favorably, and they said they would rather put up funding as in hard dollars. And that is what they have done. So this is the third cruise line to now come on board to say this is funding that we're going to put up to build this project that we think is needed. So that is what has happened. Now, people
and how do they get reimbursed for that funding?
And that's what I'm going to
repaid.
That's what I'm going to speak to.
Okay.
So now the bidders still need to have that funding because they build it, and the cruise lines don't start repaying that financing that the bidders put up until the project is finished. So you have to have that financing in place as well. So that's how that's worked, because it's design, build, finance, and maintain. Okay. Now the cruise lines get that funding back. I think Deputy Premier kind of delved into it with the an additional passenger fee that is put in place that is now used for a private business, essentially. So that is the situation there for the funding. Now we expect we're still talking with 2 other cruise lines, and we hope to agree financing with them as well prior to preferred bidder. So I'll take the second question now that I didn't write down.
Okay, what we'll do is we're going to take a commercial break, but before I take the break, I'll give you the question so you can prepare for it. It says the infrastructure required to accommodate 2+ million passengers. What is the infrastructure required to accommodate that number of passengers? Folks, please stay tuned for the record. We'll be back shortly.
Since 1993, Rotary Central has worked diligently each year to provide quality bus shelters to our community, a traveling convenience to our school children, the elderly, young people going to work, guest workers, and visitors using the public bus. We, Rotary Central, help you, our advertisers, make it happen. Your marketing dollar travels a far way, positioning your message, your product, your services, your presence in over 83 bus shelters. Every dollar you spend, every advert you place helps to build another bus shelter, providing modest comfort for Cayman travelers. Reserve space now on the only billboard medium in the Cayman Islands. Email rotaryshelters@gmail.com. rotaryshelters@gmail.com. The Bus Shelters, a partner in community convenience. Another inspiration program by Rotary Central Cayman Islands.
I remember playing at 7 Mile Beach as a boy, eating mango by the sea, learning how to snorkel. My mother, she worked so hard to provide for our family so that we could have those moments. Seeing her age has been tough. That strong, capable woman, now in need of daily support, it's my time to be strong for her.
CTMH Doctors Hospital Pharmacy understands the importance of the careful decisions you make every day for your family. Our staff work towards healthcare excellence and providing the most current and up-to-date training with pharmaceutical care, so you can feel confident in knowing that your family is safe with the right medication. At CTMH Doctors Hospital Pharmacy, we take care of your health.
Spend a day at Grand Cayman's biggest one-day family fun day, the 52nd Annual Agriculture Show at the Stacey Watler Agriculture Pavilion in Lower Valley, coming March 6th. Raffle tickets are now on sale, and for only $25, you can win $20,000 and so many other prizes, including a garden package, iPhone, and staycation. Raffle tickets include general admission to the show. For more information, visit them on Facebook or caymanagriculture.ky.
The Cayman Economic Outlook Conference returns to the Kimpton Seafire Resort Thursday, February 28 with the theme Dynamic New World. Get your tickets by registering online at rfceo.ky. That's rfceo.ky. Take part in this dynamic discussion with the world's leading thinkers and doers on global business, science, technology, finance, politics, and culture, and how this affects the Cayman economy. The CEO Conference at the Kimpton Seafire Resort, happening this Thursday, February 28th. Get your tickets by registering online at rfceo.ky.
For the record, with Orrett Connor.
Initiating system.
For information that matters. For the record, with Orrett Connor. Continues right now on Radio Cayman.
Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. In the studio with me, Deputy Premier, the Honorable Moses Kirkconnell, and his Chief Officer, Mr. Stran. Bodden, the second question posed by Mr. Moxham was the infrastructure required to accommodate the 2+ million passengers. But before we go there, we have one caller, so let's take the phone call first. Caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Morning. Good morning to your panel, Mr. Bodden and Mr. Kirkconnell.
Morning.
Well, I just have a few questions. I didn't get to listen to all of the show, so I didn't hear all of the content but I did hear the last couple of minutes of it. Obviously, the question for me is, and Mr. Kirkconnell, you said it while you were trying to answer one of Mr. Moxham's questions, in terms of sustainability and a balance. The reality is that when we look at the numbers provided by all of our offices and committees and boards and whatnot pertaining to tourism, we see that the vast amount of and the majority of money derived from tourism comes from our stayover sector, and it would be hard to pin an argument on a board to say that we're trying to create a balance by building a cruise pier and not extending the runway. And that's just my observation, and everybody else who look at the numbers and try to rationalize how do we create a balance when the scales are tipped so far in terms of revenue and numbers of individuals coming to our shores. Mr. Malcolm asked a very important question about infrastructure as well. I heard Mr. Bodden attempt to try to answer where the money was going to be taken from in order to pay back for the project, and as opposed to saying that it will be coming from an area where private companies is benefiting, instead of just simply saying what the previous articles that we've read that has been put up from the ministry stated, that they will be taking money from the tender services in order to pay for the project. Now, I have a question. Let's just say hypothetically we build the piers, and the piers can accommodate 4 ships. Am I correct in saying that that's kind of like the goal we're trying to reach?
That's correct.
Okay, so those ships then that are involved with the financing process will dock to these ships, to these piers, and they won't be having any potential tender revenue generated from those 4 ships. So if we got 2 Oasis-sized ships, which could bring in anywhere between 4,000 to 6,000 passengers each on any given day, and then you have the other smaller ships that are not much smaller, but they too can bring anywhere between 3,000 to 4,000 people on any given day. So the revenue from tendering for those ships are non-existent, so we can't calculate that. So the other ships that call to our port on a day that we have, in the peak season, we can see 6 to 7 ships at any given time. We've seen that just recently. So those ships will have to tender, and we still have to pay the tendering services for those ships. So if we have ships docked at a pier where no tendering fees are being derived, how are we going to direct tendering fees to pay for the project? Because the tenders still have to get paid for the ships that has to be tendered. So therefore, you can't use that money to pay for the piers. And if the piers aren't generating tendering money, then how do we pay for it? Because if there is some other stipulation in there, and obviously there's a host of other questions that I have with the idea of redirecting head tax and all these different things to pay back for something that we can't afford to build, which was highlighted in the show, saying that Mr. Bodden said that the government just don't have the money to build these piers, so that's why we went out to seek financing. Now, the biggest issue that I see that we're overlooking here, and I'll go back to my first question, is Mr. Kirkconnell and Mr. Bodden, can you please explain to the listening public in the Cayman Islands and myself, is that how are we going to strike a balance in our tourism product by going mass cruise, knowing that generates the minority share of revenue derived from tourism based on all the numbers that your offices provide, as opposed to extending the runway and actually putting a real project in the ground? Because I am totally...
Caller, I'm going to ask you to ask the question and then give them an opportunity to comment, because you're asking a question and then you're answering it at the same time, which is not going to get us a long way here.
All right, Mr. Connor, I would appreciate if you would reserve your comments because I'm asking your panel. So,
listen, I am moderating this show, not you. I'm asking you to give them a chance to respond.
How are we going to create a balance by building a pier as opposed to not extending the runway when it comes to our tourism product? Because our tourism product clearly identifies that our stayover passengers spend more money with the least amount of people on our shore and least amount of strain on our infrastructure. Please answer that.
Thank you very much, caller. Gentlemen?
Okay. I think we took great pains earlier to talk about what we need to grow our product. We have a lot of different parts to the puzzle for tourism. We talked about the different percentages. I want to make it very clear that the balance that we are trying to strike is a moving target that will continue to move as we look at what is available from the standpoint of cruise and what is available from the standpoint of stayover. $200 million a year comes from cruise. It represents a huge part of our overall mix. And if we were able this morning to find something that could replace that $200 million and 4,500 jobs that are hugely taken up by Caymanians, we would move in that direction to see how we could do that. But the truth is, we don't have another product that can replace that size percentage of our tourism product. So based on the information that we received from the PwC report, that rather than shrinking it, we want to grow it, we want to stabilize it, and we want to give the country opportunity through the development of jobs, infrastructure, and move forward. What was said earlier is that the balance is we want to do both. And I think that we have successfully done both. We have grown stayover visitation. We talked this morning about the lengthening of the runways actually in place right now with the RFP, the taxiways, the improvement of how we can bring more stayover on a percentage basis. This year, you're going to see a reduction in cruise passenger arrivals simply because of the way they're booked. What we know is that last year, we had 2.3 million visitors. I believe that everybody, as we say, tourism is everybody's business. Everybody in the island recognized that. We hear comments about how busy people were. Our objective now is that we make sure that our hospitality school is working. We make sure our scholarship programs are available, that we empower more Caymanians to be involved. But if you shrink a business, then you shrink opportunity for the public and the people who need to take advantage of a lifestyle that creates opportunity for them. I think that, as a Caymanian, we all want better for each of us. And with all of the research, all of the parts of the business case that has been done, the balance, we have proven that we are growing stayover as we had the best year in cruise arrivals. It was done last year, so that fact is in place. We continue to balance cruise arrivals this year, probably 100,000 less. Stayover will pick up and grow. You can't grow stayover unless you get bricks and mortar buildings in place that take years to come. But each Caymanian needs to have an opportunity every day. So that's what we face on a daily basis, trying to make sure that the opportunity is there. The other part of it is about the vessels themselves. What we want to do is flatten out the arrival of cruise passengers. And what that means is that you have 4 ships there on Tuesday, you have 4 ships there on Wednesday, you have 4 ships there on Thursday. Yesterday was Sunday, you had 3 ships in harbor. You want all during the week to attract vessels because you have a better opportunity to get them ashore because your cruise berth facility is complete. And they know that if they come on a day that has the docks taken up, they're going to have to lay by offshore and send their customers ashore. What will happen with that is, after a period of time, people will book on the lines that are able to get to the dock. So it's much, from a carrying capacity of this island, it's much more important to bring 10,000 people a day, because that's 3,650,000 people a year if you're actually able to balance that out on a daily basis. Realistically, we know that won't happen. We know there's going to be some times that there will have to be tendering, but we also know that we have an opportunity to have more ships at the cruise berthing facility, and there's a reason for them wanting to be there, and that is because it gives their customer a better experience. And I repeat again that the cruise berthing facility is only a vehicle to get people ashore to spend their money in Grand Cayman. The questions that are being asked, government is doing everything in their power in a very systematic way to make sure that we measure twice and cut once on this. And probably the biggest frustration for both sides is that it's taking so long.
Okay, we're going to take a commercial break. Gentlemen, I'm going to ask you to indulge on your time to see if you can stay a little bit longer. We have a few, we have one caller on hold, and we have a few text messages and emails as well. How many callers, Ms. Susan? 3 callers. Okay. When we return, we're going to ask those callers to try to be as brief as possible so that we can accommodate everyone. Folks, please stay tuned for the record. We'll be back shortly.
The Board of Governors of the University College of the Cayman Islands is delighted to invite the community to the university's first presidential inauguration event, Tuesday, March 12th, 6 p.m. at Sir Vassal Johnson Hall. Witness history in the making as UCCI's first president and CEO, Dr. Stacy R. McAfee, shares her vision of creating a more student-centered, well-resourced institution that serves as a cornerstone of economic development in the Cayman Islands. Learn more by emailing events at ucci.edu.ky or visit facebook.com, official UCCI.
Since 1993, Rotary Central has worked diligently each year to provide quality bus shelters to our community, a traveling convenience to our school children, the elderly, young people going to work, guest workers, and visitors using the public bus. We, Rotary Central, help you, our advertisers, make it happen. Your marketing dollar travels a far way. Positioning your message, your product, your services, your presence in over 83 bus shelters. Every dollar you spend, every advert you place helps to build another bus shelter, providing modest comfort for Cayman travelers. Reserve space now on the only billboard medium in the Cayman Islands. Email rotaryshelters@gmail.com. rotaryshelters@gmail.com. The Bus Shelters, a partner in community convenience. Another inspiration program by Rotary Central Cayman Islands.
Sports fans, tune in to Radio Cayman Sports Extra Show.
Hi, I'm Bruce Lee Colson.
Sports Extra.
This and every Tuesday night, right here on Radio Cayman, 89.9 and 93.9, Cayman Brac and Little Cayman.
Sports Extra, from 7 to 8 p.m., right here on Radio Cayman, the voice of the Cayman Islands. Sports Extra.
Proudly brought to you by King Sports Center, providing your fitness, recreation, and relaxation needs.
Hi, I'm Colin Lumsden, the Georgetown manager and head of the Revitalization Initiative. Our capital city is the heart of business activities in the Cayman Islands, and we would like to bring it back as a center of social activities, with street-side cafes, green spaces, improved roads, and proper walkways for interconnectivity. The new cruise and cargo port is part of the plan, and will allow for operators to meet passengers dockside with less lines and overcrowding. Cargo operations will be less intrusive. There will be pedestrianized areas for people to safely walk, shop, and dine. Modernizing the cruise and cargo port is a key element in the efforts to revitalizing our capital city.
We invite you to listen in on Thursday at 7 p.m. on Radio Cayman for the next CI Retro Talk Today presentation in the Celebrate Cayman series, when we'll give you a bird's eye view, word picture of our Cayman Islands' vast maritime heritage, or maritime, which underpinned the firm foundation on which the modern Cayman Islands has been built and still continues to do so. CI Retro Talk Today is being brought to you by these fine sponsors: the Ministry of Culture, Health Service Station in West Bay, the Maritime Authority of the Cayman Islands, and by Arch and Godfrey Cayman Limited. That's CI Retro Talk Today, Friday, February the 22nd at 12:15 on Radio Cayman. CI Retro Talk Today is also being brought to you by Thompson Shipping. You can call them at 949-8044 for all of your shipping needs.
For the record, with Orrett Connor.
Initiating system.
For information that matters. For the record, with Orrett Connor. Continues right now on Radio Cayman.
Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. We're going to ask the callers to be as brief as possible. We know that some of you are more knowledgeable about some of the topics that we're talking about, more involved in it as well, but we want to give everyone an opportunity to express their views, but also to express them or to ask questions as succinctly as possible as well. Caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record. Good morning, caller. Welcome to For the Record.
Yeah, you can hear me, OC? Sorry.
Yes, I can. Go right ahead, caller.
Okay, sorry. Yes, yeah, right ahead. Quickly, I just wanted to address. I know the minister and them were just talking about extra revenue in the sense of where would it come from. I went by the license department the other day, and I was told that our visitors will no longer have to pay for temporary driver's permits. So it was a bit shocking because obviously it's a form of revenue and we have obviously very expensive roads. So if I could just have them reply to that. But just one or two more things as well. I won't bash them on anything, of course, because we just want to stick to the issues and hear what they have to say as well. I want to touch on the topic also of the Barkas area in Westway. Obviously, they've had a discussion about removing a certain amount of seagrass from there. And we see a lot of development going in, and a lot of property up there is really privately owned as well as in parcel, and they can pretty much do what they want to do. But those are the two things that I would sort of like the minister to weigh in on. Those drivers' permit, why are those charges being removed? Why aren't we actually charging more? And on the issue of the Barkas area, trail grass removal.
Thank you very much.
Sorry about that, okay. I was taking a run, so
that's okay. Thank you very much for your questions.
Have a great day.
Thank you. You too as well. Next, let's take the other call and then we can answer. Caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record. What we'll do is we'll make this the last call for the morning, Miss Susan, because we have a few WhatsApp and emails as well to answer. Caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Yes, good morning again, Mr.
Morning again.
And to your panel.
Morning.
Mr. Kirkconnell, I'm going to ask a couple of questions you can answer when I hang up. If the port ever, if the pier ever get built, are we going to have shops on the pier? If the pier ever get built, are the buses going to be taxi buses going to be going out to the pier, on the pier, to pick up the passengers to bring them in on land? And if so, what's going to happen to all of the other shopping downtown Georgetown? I know, Mr. Kirkconnell, there's a lot of questions, and I don't think we'll ever have all the answers to this pier that we so want to build, because it's a lot of concern throughout the whole island. But I would just like to really know about the shops, if there'll be any shops out there on the pier when the pier is built. And the bus is going to be going there to pick up these people, to bring them on land, and they're going to be driven back to the boat and not be able to shop on land. Thank you.
Thank you very much, caller. We're going to close the phone lines off now. I give the Minister and his Chief Officer an opportunity to answer the multitude of questions that we do have.
Thank you. The last question, the bids are put out without upland development. Mm-hmm. Now, we know that upland development is a revenue earner for cruise berthing facilities. So the license that will be issued for the Triple P partner to build under will not have the ability to rent buildings to help finance the pier. Mm-hmm. The government's thought was that what happens with that is that you create value in Georgetown itself. And if you look at Georgetown revitalization and what's taking place with that, and you're pushing people off Front Street, as we call it, into the Georgetown community, and you start moving back into Georgetown with shops and restaurants and opportunities that, if we allowed upland development, would not be made available for landowners and for people who want to do something entrepreneurial in the Georgetown area. Her other question is that if you look at the newer cruise berthing facilities that have been developed, Falmouth, Mexico, Dominican Republic, and you can name on and on the ones that have been built in the last 5 years. A bus never goes alongside the ship, obviously for a couple different reasons. One, it's a terrorist risk that if it was to blow up alongside it, it's not compatible with the design of getting people on and off. But all of those have areas where taxis and tour operators pull in and let their people off in a very controlled, systematic, comfortable way.
Staging area
back and forth. So I think that's her too. What was the other one?
There was one about the Barkers area.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. Right. I think Barkers is a really good example of the strength of our Department of Environment and people who want to do development in the right way. Mr. Whitaker is an extremely successful restaurateur, tourism ambassador, understands his product, understands the community, and he now is meeting with Department of Environment and looking at options that will allow him to be successful and also allow a balance for the environment. So I expect a very positive result from that. I don't think that the next couple of weeks are going to have answers, but I believe that Mr. Whitaker is very interested. Basically last week we sat down and spent real time in moving that forward. And the other one was about the driver's license?
Driver's license, yeah, for tourists.
Okay, I thank him for that question. It gives me a reason to speak to Minister Hugh this morning and find out. There must have been a business case. I don't know whether it was more expensive to issue those than the revenue they were getting in. But we'll find out and see if we missed an opportunity. I would venture on the side that there's a real reason of why they've done it that way.
Okay, we'll stick to the cruise facility for a minute, and then I have one comment in relation to flights to Montego Bay, and there's one question in relation to winning a ticket on Cayman Airways but losing the letter because the person was undergoing medical treatment in Florida, had their bags stolen, and the letter of indicating that they had won, they no longer have it, so they can't claim the free ticket from Cayman Airways. But this one says, is it true tender company gets $6 or $7 per head on ship's manifest? Tender fees will become docking fees, so 4 ships tied to dock will average 4,000 passengers each. 16,000 times $6 equals 96,000 for a day. I guess those are just comments. Are those figures for real?
I think the way that he's put it together and structured it about there's a certain amount the tender gets paid, there's a certain amount that they won't get paid because they're laying alongside the dock is correct. We don't know the exact amount that the tender gets paid. We used a number that we believe is in the region, $6 or $7 of what they do get paid. So I would say that his overall theory is correct in how he presented that.
Okay.
Well, see, I just want to go down my good friend Mr. Moxham's last 2 questions, because if I don't get them, he'll be calling me. The second question on infrastructure required to accommodate. So right now, as I think I mentioned earlier, we are in discussions with the Georgetown Revitalization Initiative headed up by Mr. Lumsden in terms of what will gel well with them. We know that there's been a discussion, and we see it happening for a ring road around Georgetown in order to get people in and out of Georgetown more efficiently. Mm-hmm. But all that comes to what we hope to accomplish with new opportunities, facilitating new opportunities for people to come up with an attraction or an adventure to go on for our cruise visitors, that we are able to get them off ship out to the north, to West Bay, to the east, to Bodden Town, north side and east end, to enjoy Cayman outside of Georgetown. If you want to take a walking tour of Georgetown, you obviously can, but in terms of what we see happening with roads and so forth, that's the infrastructure that's being put in place. What we also need to think about, we talk about 2.3 million people, right? And we did last year, we did 1.9 million roughly. But what we really need to talk about is the carrying capacity on a daily basis. Mm-hmm. Yeah, if we can accommodate, we've accommodated up to I think 24,000 on one extreme peak day a few years back, but now it hovers around 20,000. I think the Deputy Premier alluded to that as well. If we can do that on one day, those people don't stay here; they leave, right? So what we need to look at is a daily carrying capacity of what we can do on one day, as opposed to what we're looking at year round. Yeah. His third point was the price point. He's saying how would bidders get to that point, having not done the studies and so forth. And that Mr. Moxham has been reading up, and he knows what we're going through. So what we would get to at first is a preferred bidder status for whoever wins. Then through the process, then we would go through the studies and so forth to get to contract where the dollars would be narrowed down a lot more. Yeah. And his last point on the EIA update, the EAB would draft, the Environmental Assessment Board would draft the terms of reference. I think we would do some scoping of that, but they would do, as they've done before in the first EIA, the Environmental Assessment Board would do the terms of reference.
Okay, we're going to take our last commercial break. Folks, please stay tuned for the record. We'll be back shortly.
Customers often ask us questions about their shipments.
Hi, I'm thinking of buying a car from the States. Which port do you ship out of?
Hi, we ship out of Miami, Houston, and Brooklyn. Just let us know your port of choice and we can provide you with a quotation and answer any questions you may have on insuring and protecting your vehicle during its journey.
Shipping shore to shore, Seaboard.
Thinking of doing more to show your sweetheart you really care? Explore new roads together with the 2019 RAV4, Vamped Motors' #1 selling SUV. Save $2,000 off all 2019 RAV4s loaded with features you both will fall in love with, like maximum comfort and cargo space inside, eco mode for low fuel consumption, an audio system with USB and Bluetooth connectivity, vehicle stability and traction control to help you navigate wet roads, and advanced safety features to keep you and your loved ones safe. Do more for your sweetheart and save $2,000 now on the all-new 2019 RAV4 from Vamped Motors, Walkers Road.
Quincy, where you is? I can't see you these days.
Darling, as our Jamaican friends say, I gone a foreign.
Well, I hope you coming back for Red Sky at night. You never miss that and you better not start now.
No, girl. I'll make sure I'm there. When is this again?
Saturday, March 2nd, Hartwell Theatre Grounds from 4 p.m. to midnight. Same delicious Cayman cooked food, all the dance, storytelling, dramatic and musical performances, and of course, all the local artisans selling their beautiful art, crafts, jewelry, clothes, and accessories. There's even a new development, the Caymanian Village.
Okay, well, I'll meet you at the entrance at 4 o'clock.
Don't forget your $15 to get in now.
Tickets for Red Sky at Night are $15 for adults, $5 for children 12 and under, $10 for seniors 65 and over, and students ages 13 to 17. Get yours today through Eventpro or one of our many outlets across the island.
For the record, with Orrett Connor.
Initiating system.
For information that matter. For the record, with Orrett Connor. Continues right now on Radio Cayman.
Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. We're on the last leg of the show this morning. I want to thank the Minister and his Chief Officer. I want to thank all of those persons who called in as well, even those that got a little bit contentious. I want to thank everyone for the pertinent questions that they posed, as well as suggestions that were made as well. So we have this one. This person wanted to know if they were the winner of a travel to any Cayman Airways destination but lost their letter last year, can that person still get the offer? It says it was at a Bodden town tourism meeting, and the person said that they had to go through. They were doing surgery at the time. My suggestion, and I'm sure the Minister and the Chief Officer will have as well, maybe get something confirming from persons who may have attended the meeting or something like that, confirming that they in fact did win it, and then present it to someone at Cayman Airways. Or what, Minister?
If it was the tourism meeting, that was when we were doing the rounds for the National Tourism Policy, and I believe that all of us in this room, with the exception of you, were there. So I certainly take your point as a very good point. If they could just find who they went with or somebody that was around them, send a quick note over. I would suggest they send it to either Mr. Fabian Worms or Paul Tibbetts at Cayman Airways. If they want to copy the ministry, they can copy myself on it. But I think that we would be very aware, because the whole tourism, if that's the meeting, it shouldn't really be an issue at all. It shouldn't be an issue following your thoughts of just sending a note with some support with it. We're happy to make sure they get the ticket.
Okay, and Mr. Bodden, I know that during the opening portion of the show, you did talk about the concessions at the airport. Going to just ask you to repeat yourself. This person poses the question, could you please ask the gentleman with you if they could elaborate a bit on the timing of the opening of the various concessions in the departure lounge and when they anticipate them being completed?
Yeah, so as I mentioned earlier, I think we have 2 or 3 open now. The remaining concessions will open throughout the year, depending on their the amount of work they've got done and their planning process, their design, and the length of time it takes with their construction. If they don't have a lot of mill work and so forth in their concession area, they would obviously get there quicker. But they'll open. I would estimate between now and the third quarter of the year. That would probably be the last concessions being open.
Okay, another question on the piers. Please ask the minister what data analysis do they have that cruise passengers prefer to walk the distance over getting a tender, as any data analysis should be in the public domain.
It comes out in the BRIA report and the different parts of the business cases. We will make sure that if it's not out, that it's made available. I would say this, that when you go by the Royal Watler now and North Terminal and South Terminal, and you see people stand in the sun for an hour and a half, or you see them stand in the rain for an hour and a half to get back on board the vessel, I think that's an endorsement that they would much prefer to be able to go back and forth without having that waiting time. But we'll certainly make sure that whatever we have is made available. Thank you.
Okay. And the caller that had written in about the presentation, I believe they now understand that it may have been Mr. Tristan Hydes that presented on the revitalization, and they will contact him. And then one more, we'll make this the last one. I believe I've gone through all, because when I look at these on Wednesday and I see them on Wednesday morning, I realize, gosh, all these questions came in on Monday. How do I get them answered? It says, good morning, panel. Is it envisaged the CBF cruise berthing facilities will provide shelter for our tourists disembarking and embarking the cruise ships to protect them from the sun and the rain? I'd be just facetious and say I think they come here for the sun, so that part of it they may not want protection from, but the rain. But jokes aside, yeah.
No, absolutely, it makes it an easier way to get off and on the vessel. And the one thing that we really missed out talking about today is the cargo itself, and the need that something has to be done about cargo. The port runs 24 hours a day. The people do an excellent job. The business case continues exactly how it is today, that the Port Authority of the Cayman Islands will manage the facility, will staff workers to take care of the facility, will have responsibility for the facility, and on top of that, they'll be able to move cargo back and forth in a much more efficient way than they're allowed to do right now. So there is a desperate need. The port was built with a 50-year lifespan. It's 40-something years into that life now. They say $35-40 million project. We have to get started on it. It's like the airport. We can't wait any longer. Mm-hmm. So that all wraps into the CBF as well. So happy to realize that we have a way ahead to sort that problem out.
Okay, and one quick one, even though I promised that was the last one, but I think this one is important because this $200 million keeps popping up. It says, good morning, Mr. Connor. Could you please ask the Deputy Premier where the $200 million figure for cruise tourism comes from? The 2017 CI Destination Performance Report states that cruise tourism generated CI $154 million in 2017.
Last year we did 1.9 plus million. Okay, and 1.9, the last BRIA was $115 a day spend. I think that comes out to a little bit over $200. The BRIA is probably going to be, I think, brought down a little bit, but let's just say it's $100. That's still right there at $200 million US dollar spend. So that's how we quantify it.
Okay, and this comment says, I support the next steps with the new cruise berthing facility. As Honorable Moses Kirkconnell said, quote, measure twice, cut once. The other point is that we should ensure diversity in our tourism so that we are less vulnerable to global economic changes, especially in the U.S. In good economic times, all tourism sectors can experience growth. Economic downturns tend to favor cruise tourism over stayover tourism. With that, gentlemen, I will give you an opportunity for closing comments, and we'll start with Chief Officer Mr. Stran Bodden.
Just want to say thank you for having us. It's always a pleasure to come and speak with you, Mr. Connor, and talk with the listening public. Tourism has a lot going on. The infrastructure that is badly needed has certainly been started and coming to fruition at the airport, and we look forward to the work that's being done on the cruise berthing side. I just want to say, as I always try to, is the Department of Tourism, I believe in them. Of course, I'm very biased, but I think they're the most professional department in the entire civil service. The amount of work they do, I just want to say thank you very much to them that are listening. And don't worry, plenty more hard work, as I tell them.
Wait, right? No good deed goes unpunished.
Correct.
Well, thank you very much for giving us some time this morning. It's always a pleasure to be here with you, and it's a pleasure to receive the calls and the questions. I think we are as open as we can possibly be. We try to answer all the questions, whether it's today on your show or written questions and the other events. I would like to say that none of this happens by accident. I'm very fortunate to have tremendous support from my caucus and from the cabinet members. The elected colleagues are with every minister, understanding and realizing how important tourism is. We have a very good team, as Chief Officer says. We have a fantastic team in the ministry. We have a fantastic team at the Department of Tourism, and I'm not going to take the time to mention all the other attractions, but every day they go to work to make a difference for tourism, and they are doing a great job. We are looked at in the region as the gold standard, and we will continue to be looked at that way. We have to balance our approach. We have to make sure we put the infrastructure in place for the next generation, and we're doing that. Thank you very much for you. I know some of the jobs you've had in the past, or the head of immigration, the head of the cabinet office, but this morning I saw how you take control of the radio. So thank you very much. We certainly enjoyed the morning with you.
Thank you very much for being here as well. And folks, if you think that we've come a long way, when you get an opportunity, I'll share this with you. February the 24th, 1966, new airport light. And under the caption it reads, shown here is the new revolving beacon installed at the airport this week. Work has been going on for some time now, erecting the base for the light, and it was hoisted aloft last Thursday and put into operation this week. Another measure to increase the safety of our modern airport. And in 1966, we had something that we considered to be modern then. We went on to 1983, 1984. We had something that was considered to be modern, and now we have upgraded again, and we consider it to be modern. And 5-10 years down the line, we will be seeking to modernize again, because that's the way things go. Exactly. Folks, I want to thank you for allowing Radio Cayman, and by extension For the Record, into your homes, into your vehicles as you traverse the busy roads of the Cayman Islands, into your places of work, whether it be an office cubicle or if you're working in the outdoors. I also want to remind you that we are our brothers and our sisters' keepers. There is always someone out there who's less fortunate than we are, and I ask you to extend a helping hand to them. If you can't do that, then I suggest you donate to a worthy charity, because we always want to consider those who need, not necessarily those who want or even those who crave. I say to you, have a great day. Continue to support your radio station, Radio Cayman. Join Sterling, Dwayne Banks at 12:15 for Talk today. And as usual, we ask the good Lord to bless these three beautiful, wonderful Cayman Islands.
The only authorized Ford and Toyota dealership serving the Cayman Islands. Cayman Pharmacy Group, with a location in West Bay and professional pharmacy at CTMH Doctors Hospital. The Cayman Pharmacy Group has a location for you just around the corner. Seaboard Marine. With over 35 shipping ports, find your shipping solution by calling 949-4977 or visit seaboardmarine.com for competitive rates. And Rotary Central. For more than 110 years, Rotary members have used their passion, energy, and intelligence to take action on sustainable projects.
Radio Cayman. Headline. Radio Cayman's newsroom. Headline. These are the biggest stories right now.
The Ministry of Culture supports the expansion of the National Art Collection at the National Gallery for a second year through the acquisition of 4 new artworks. The pieces selected for this donation are by preeminent Caymanian artists, native sons Chris Christian, Gordon Solomon, and Al Leebanks, along with Shane Dreddy Urquhart. North Korea could become one of the world's, quote, great economic powers if it relinquishes its nuclear weapons, so says U.S. President Donald Trump. Writing on Twitter, Mr. Trump said the nation had, quote, more potential for rapid growth than any other. His comments came hours after his Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo, said Pyongyang remains a nuclear threat. And a controversial cartoon of Serena Williams published in an Australian newspaper last year, quote, did not breach any media standards. The cartoon depicted Williams jumping above a broken racket next to a baby's dummy in the U.S. Open final. Critics complained that the caricature used racist and sexist stereotypes of African-American people. The Australian Press Council noted that some had found the image, quote, offensive, but accepted the publisher's defense. Those are your headlines. I'm Carsley Fuller.